Here we go. Welcome back to another video. This is Jake at Pear Tree Ranch, and this is a young horse that we have in for starting. So she's going to be 3, and Willow is kind of getting ready for her first saddling, and she doesn't really know a lot. So some of you're seeing here, we just have some resistance on the halter, and that just comes from not knowing a lot. And then we want to introduce her to this ball so that we can start having her be more prepared for saddling. If you've watched our Milton video, you saw how we used that to help. And so I'm just pushing it around, and she's kind of needing to learn here how to get behind and follow, and that she can stick with me more and be out of the way of that ball. And once we get a horse to follow, it can really start to build some confidence. Now, I'm purposely choosing a line that starts to buzz her a little bit and be closer to her bubble versus just keeping it way out in front of me and pushing it ahead. And so this is just kind of giving us a chance to work on her staying off of that halter and learn to be a little more under control. Okay, so we teach that there's 4 stages of development: teach, control, reinforce, and refine. And this is about teaching her that we can control her, that she can be held with the rope, and then we're not doing anything to her or forcing anything once she comes off that. See, she comes off that halter and steps into relief, but she doesn't know that. She's just bothered by that ball. But see, now she's starting to stay off it a little bit more. It's catching her a little bit easier. And you can see me pointing to the line that I'm working on, where if she just keeps following me, she's going to be out of the way. So instead of running away, she can do a little more thoughtful forward and around. There's a little better look from her. And so we're just setting this up in the round pen, kind of listening to her that she needs to follow, but yet she does need to be challenged. She does need to get off of that rope and learn to be a little more respectful or thoughtful about the pressure of that halter and give it a chance to be a good deal. Now, again, I've changed the direction here I'm walking, and she needs to look and be more thoughtful versus just think escape and be resistant. There, and see, and when I got a hold of her and she got off that rope, there was a time where it's like nothing is happening. Okay. There, see, nothing is happening. The ball continues to just move away, so we didn't force it at her and go right to trying to put it on her. She just needs to stay off the rope, learn to keep it slack, and be thoughtful, which we're seeing her do by stretching her nose and her neck. And being easy with how she makes effort here. And I like to put it that way. She's learning to put a little more thoughtful effort versus just be explosive and resistant to the halter. Which, when she does that, allows me to offer her better and better deals where she has an opportunity to see what's happening. Now her curiosity has come on, which is great visual of the idea of releasing her to the ball. I never pulled her up there. I didn't make her come put her nose on it. I didn't shoo her with the stick to it. We just kept the ball around and allowed her to decide. She wanted to be curious, okay? We taught her we could control her. We didn't let her just be crazy and run around and fearful, but we didn't force her to do anything. She changed her mind and decided to come up there. Now you can see the wind kind of blow it. That's going to come into play later. There's going to be certain positions I'll choose to work from to kind of have the wind in a helpful position to move the ball, versus there, the wind kind of blew it in a way that made it easy for her to get scared and bothered a little bit. Now, if I didn't have timelines, right, like this is a horse that we're being paid to start and train, you could just put the ball in the round pen, turn her loose in there, and go do, something else. And that's a great option. However, in that scenario, she doesn't learn the control from the lead rope. And so we're kind of getting a couple of things done at once here. She's learning more about yields off the halter and the rope, and then is learning how to get thoughtful about turning on her curiosity.
Sorry to interrupt your video, but really quick, we want to make sure that you know all the juicy content, step-by-step how-to training guides, that's over on Patreon. So if you want, there's a 4-part trailer loading video series, that's on Patreon. You want the 7-part lead chain series, that's on Patreon. So get over there, get signed up, join us there, and let's get back to this video.
When we're being more efficient trainers, we learn to get things done sooner rather than later and get multiple things done at once. Now, you got to be careful, because doing too many things at one time makes it harder on the horse, right? Easier on the human, shortens timelines. Time is money is the saying, but that we don't want to get drawn into that. We want to also have this be a good deal for the horse, okay? So now that she's shown us that she's choosing to go up there and get curious, I'll start to encourage the curiosity with some herding pressure, okay? So using the tail of the lead rope to shoo her, herd her, drive her in the direction of the ball so that she can learn to be encouraged to go put her nose on it, to touch it, and eventually push it. Some horses, you can kind of push that ball in their direction. There, see how the wind from that side kind of helped that get blown and roll away from her. She didn't have to push it that hard, and a lot happened. That was a purposefully designed situation. Some horses, as I was saying, you can push that ball towards them, it bumps them in the chest, and they're maybe a little bit startled, and they go, oh, well, nothing really, that wasn't bad. And then you can roll it up to them, touch them with it, and start lifting it up on them. She has such worry about the sight of it coming towards her. Okay, so horses are afraid of sight, sound, and feel. So the sight of it, it's just not something she's been exposed to. The sight of it coming towards her or moving around creates bother. But then also the sound of the ball, which will come into play later on when we start to try to bounce it and have it have a little more energy to put it up and on her, that sound creates bother and worry from her. Okay, the feel of it never really bothered her. As soon as it starts touching her, the feel of it didn't bother her, okay? But the sight of it moving and moving towards her, and then the sound of it that it makes when it bounces, both those things created some worry. So we just needed to take reps of herding her towards this to have her touch it enough times. You can see she gets pretty good at nuzzling it with her nose. But to get to the next point where I can put it on her, we need to get where she touches it there with her front end. See, she ran into it with her leg. And so personally, I actually like, if I'm going to teach a horse to push the ball, I like them to push it with their nose. versus kick it with their front leg, depending on the bridle that you're riding in. When their nose is above it and then they kick it, it can bounce the bit under their chin. And so I like my horses actually to push with their nose, but here we're purposefully having her embrace, trying to shield the sun for you guys from shining in the lens. That's why we have a little hand poking in there. If she can push this with her shoulder and touch it with the front end enough times, that's where we kind of know, then we get permission to start touching her with the ball, versus here we're getting her to touch it first. Okay. And that's the same as what we did. We didn't encourage her to start touching it more until she chose to touch it with her nose. Okay. So she tells us when she's ready for the next thing. And so we're just saying more, more, more until she starts to understand how to be able to do that. And then we keep kind of setting up the position where she can start to run into it a little bit with her shoulder and realize that that's fine. There it goes. And once that starts happening, there's going to be another change where then we can progress to the next spot. So again, she's still pretty fresh and inexperienced horse. So we've done a couple of sessions of Liberty with the long sticks to start being able to herd her around. We've done a little bit of flag work to start teaching her head down and some sideways and moving her around. She's worn the bareback pad with a saddle pad underneath it. So we've done a few things here of teaching her some confidence and yielding, and this ball was kind of a next bigger, harder puzzle of something that has to be confidence, okay, that she can touch it, have it touch her, but then also yielding, that we can start to have some boundaries of where she goes and how she goes, and that she can make good choices about how to fit in those boundaries. And this is just going to take time and reps. She's going to need lots of opportunity to touch it with her nose and then start to touch it with the front end. And by the end, she kind of gets where it's like it gets so strong that she realizes the answer is push it and shove it, that every time I try to roll it to the side to then put it up on her, she goes to step to the side and kick it and bounce it, away. That she learned good comfort from that. But until we get to that point, okay, there's this in between where we just need lots of reps of her kind of learning to run herself into this before we start running her into it. And again, I'm just being the boundaries, the lava, and creating pressure that encourages her to move. There, see, when she gets off the halter, the byproduct was she ran into the ball. And then you see her, she's starting to go, oh, wait a second. That wasn't so bad. And when she really kind of gets that happening, we give her a lot of release to create more relief, so she feels better and better about the deal. And once it happens, she's smart, she's quick. and it just draws more of that curiosity out. Again, you could choose to take more time. That's fine. If you increase pressure, you can decrease the timeline. Okay. You can only decrease the pressure so much. There is going to be a minimum amount of pressure that you must use. You cannot lift a 1 pound weight with less than 1 pound. Now, for those smarty pants that are going, well, if you use leverage, that's still the weight experienced 1 pound of pressure to be lifted. Okay. So there is going to be a minimum amount of pressure and it's going to be different for each horse that they are going to have to experience to make a change. And everyone is different. Some horses you can use less pressure. Some horses need to experience more pressure or discomfort to really choose to change, do something different. Same thing, there is only so long you can take or so fast you can go, because you can only increase pressure so much before you're going to hurt a horse. You can't increase pressure so much and get the timeline that shortened without, then doing damage. Now, there's another variable. So we talked about time and pressure as the variables that we can change. You can increase quality of the application of time and pressure. That's horsemanship. Okay, so the way that we apply time and pressure to a horse, use psychology, that's the horsemanship. So we can increase the quality of our horsemanship, and that helps with how much time and pressure it takes. To me, I'm always, for a long time I used to just say, well, it's time and pressure, but that's an assumption then that the horsemanship is just right. So we can always be looking to increase the quality of our horsemanship. That helps with how we apply time and pressure. Okay? So now, while we were yakking about the variables that we can change to adjust how much pressure we want to or get to use, and then the time that will take, how that all works, we've seen that by getting her to touch that with her shoulder the first time, then I took it to her and touched her shoulder with it and lifted it up on her. It was easy. It was very easy to roll it up on her. But that's because she had touched it enough time with her shoulder there and pushed it that she wasn't then afraid of the feel of the ball touching her. The nice thing about this case that goes over it, the cover that goes over the ball, is that there's that little hole with the Velcro where you put the deflated ball in there, and that works as a great little handle to be able to lift the ball quietly without having to bounce it. And so you can see that it's not about the ball going on her that she's worried about. It's the sound that the ball makes when we start to bounce it, that then as soon as it bounces and makes that sound, that's different, and that causes her to worry. Okay, so we're going to play a balance here of getting the ball on her so she understands the goal, and then also bouncing it to where she starts to not fret about that. Okay, now one of the big reasons to use the ball is because it is so light. Like, this is not tiresome for me to lift it this many times. It's big enough and bulky enough that you kind of can swing it with some energy. And so it gets the horse used to and exposed to the life it takes to lift something big up and on them. Okay. But you can get a lot of reps in compared to lifting a, 40, 50 pound saddle up and on there that many times. Again, referring back to the Milton video, we used the kid saddle to make it easy for us to lift and up on there to start getting him used to the saddle going. And then it allowed it to be something that one-handed I could do. So same idea here. One-handed, I can lift and swing this up and on her and just give her lots of reps of it happening. There, see, and she changed and was like, I think I want to stand still. I think I want to be curious. So we pause and go, okay, If you're going to be curious and try to stand still, we'll give you some time here. That's a rewardable behavior. Now, one of the differences from where we were lifting it on and now is you're seeing me start to block the forward. Okay. I'm starting to block the forward and say, don't just run forward. Think about a little bit of backwards. Okay. Talk about 8 directions: stand still, forwards, backwards, right, left, up, down, stand still. I'm starting to put a little backwards in. Now, it's helpful that if we can get by the fence and have the fence kind of block the left, the ball is blocking the right, and then the lead rope is blocking the forwards. That's allowing her to decide maybe she can just go backwards to find a little relief. And that's going to, in the process, give us a little more standstill. We don't want to chase them with the ball, okay? But we do want to start to interrupt just that run forward, okay? Which is a horse's nature, to fly from fear, okay? And if we take that away, then that's when they can start to fight. And then there's also the potential for freeze. Freeze is going to be more common in donkeys, mules, draft horses, okay? You're going to have less and less of that with hotter breeds, thoroughbreds, Arabians. And so we got to be mindful of those natural things that horses do when they get scared and start to coach them to something different. So again, it's not about the ball here. We're using this as an opportunity to see, what is she going to do when she gets bothered? Okay. We know the general things, but this horse specifically, what is she going to choose to do, so we can be prepared for it, so that if I am up and on there for the first time, that I have an awareness of, well, when she gets scared, she does this behavior, okay? And so we can start to prepare her for what to do instead by getting her to do a different behavior, okay? That's education. So here we're giving her education about pressure on the nose can herd her back. I'm using rhythmic bumping, okay, with the lead rope to herd her backwards. And that's just telling her the answer isn't forward. Now, we're allowing her to drift backwards, okay? And we're mostly keeping the ball in front, okay? So I'm rolling it and touching it off the shoulder. There, it rolled, bumped her. She didn't move, so we've stopped to just go, see, that was simple. And by, rolling it to her and keeping her backwards, but see, I'm able to catch her softly now versus at the start of the video, she was pulling very hard on the rope. She's starting to find this middle ground. So it's not so big backwards and it's not so big forward, that she can start to find this little bit of a middle space where she can work and we can then play approach and retreat. That's the technique for building confidence. See, we've approached and she didn't get a bother, and so we get a little rub. Okay, that was the retreat. Now, it doesn't have to be this big retreat. Okay, some people go, oh, well, you didn't take the ball 20,000 feet across the round pen away from her and spend 3 hours giving release. It doesn't need to be such a big release, okay, to help them learn. A lot of times I'll use the 3, 2, 1, take a deep breath. That's kind of a minimum for me when I'm looking to give a release to a horse. Now the ball's rolled behind her, okay? And so it made it hard for her to back up. She found a hole. And we just keep on working. That opportunity kind of arose for us to just switch sides. the opportunity arose there for her to bump it with her butt. And when we can see how she's starting to kick it back, that rolls in there, that's showing how she kind of learned that behavior earlier. And so now she's just having to learn a new space for it, that it can be at the shoulder and the ribs. So we did nose, neck, shoulder. Now it needs to start to be shoulder, ribs, and eventually hip. And we just got to expose her to this enough times. And as she starts to be more present and realize, like there, it's bumping her and nothing bad is really happening. Like she's startled, but nothing bad happened. Like what was bad was in her mind. It was made up. Okay, nothing bad actually happened. And that's where we, for our own selves, it's like, oh, I got scared. It's like, yeah, but did anything actually bad really happen? The saying, people have those shirts, but did you die? Okay, it was mental discomfort. Nothing bad really happened to her here. So we just kind of keep setting up these opportunities for it to be around her, be bouncing and making noise, and that when I can start having these boundaries be effective in showing her she didn't need to do that. Simon didn't say go forward. Simon didn't say go backwards. And she can go, oh, and try stand still. Well, then all of a sudden, she goes, oh, well, nothing really bad did happen. And that's where we just have to have our patience and our persistence stay in the game. I use the saying, babies cry and they poop their pants. Okay? Horses get scared and they get bothered. That's part of the deal. They're prey animals. And we've got to set them up to learn what to do with that fear and what to do with that worry and how to use healthy behaviors to find the comfort. And when they start to hunt the comfort with healthy behaviors versus unhealthy, right? Unhealthy bucking, rearing, striking, kicking, biting. Those are unhealthy behaviors to look for a way through pressure. Okay. Versus even if our horsemanship isn't perfect, most of us have predetermined a good space for the horse to be, and it's not going to be a bad deal. And when they start to find it, they go, oh yeah, it's not maybe the best deal, but it's really not that bad. And they learn to then find comfort there. And so it didn't, when she started to find the opportunity to be still while the bouncing was going on, she realized, oh, this really isn't so bad. And I don't have to hold her or interrupt. She gives this a chance, and she's kind of chosen stand still on her own. And that is going to have her more ready for saddling and doing her first ride. All right, a little bit of bonus content for you here. Really, that first day session is enough to see the progress that we were able to make in a day. You go from scared and bothered and worried, pulling on the rope, to confident, relaxed, and stood still. This is day 2. And so the time it took me to edit a different video and get to editing this video, we kind of did day 2. And so I wanted to be able to show you that we can then kind of come out and start right up in there. And then we went to the bareback pad, okay, which we'd already done before we ever did the ball day. And in the process of pushing her around with the cinch on before considering going to the saddle, we said, well, here, we can play a little more with the ball, work a little bit further away, and use the long shushy stick, as I call it, to herd her more and get a little more pushing. So she just learns, again, new skills. It's not really about the ball and her pushing it, but her learning new skills, learning to be thoughtful, listening to pressure as communication versus pressure meaning she's in trouble or bad. Okay, I want my pressure to encourage and communicate, not have to be about discourage and that they're bad. And so we can have her on the ball, come out here, and then release her back to the ball. The ball will just get more and more comforting. So you see there's a little bit of a difference in how she is on this right side versus the left. And she wants to kind of get back into position to push it going to the left. You see how she nuzzles it with her nose. It's like that makes sense to her to be on a left arc there and shoving it. And so to get her over and in position where she can bring me the ball on either arc is kind of what we start setting up here. So we get a little progress, come away from the ball. You can see she's asking about the ball. We're going to do a little walk, trot, canter. Just working on these different skills that we need her to be able to do and get some strength and conditioning, get some fitness, get some reps of carrying the pad and being cinched, being relaxed. You can see here she doesn't have the hind lead. And so we have nose, neck, shoulder, and then the hip finally came forward. Okay, once the hip came under and she had the full left lead, then we'll bring her over here and release her to the ball. And you can see that's real easy for her on that left arc. Push that ball and push it hard. Like that's good for only her second day seeing the ball, and that she started bothered. Some horses come right out and they can't wait to chase that ball, jump on that ball, play with that ball. She just wasn't that way at first. No big deal. We just can come out here, do a little bit of, I don't want to use the word work, a little bit of exercise and something different, but cantering is harder than pushing the ball from a physical standpoint. And so can we just keep setting this up to where she can get into position, learn to get underneath the balls, the phrase that I like to use, and it's a phrase I'll use when teaching about working cattle. You learn to get underneath the ball or underneath the cow and learn to push. And you can see she's wanting to push it around so she can work that way. And it's like, okay, she was putting effort into pushing the ball, so I allowed it. But then I'm going to go, by the way, you could have been back over there and push it. Okay, and you can see her. She's just bringing it back to her left. It's like, nope, you need to bring it to your right. And then she gets a good push there. And you can see that's in the earlier bit I was talking about. I'd rather them push it with their nose than kick it with their feet, and I'm happy that she's kind of getting that and just shoves it out of the way with her nose. Nice progress in day 2 of working with the ball. And then at the end here, we just want to show this was kind of what we're looking for with all that she gained confidence in yielding with the ball. That made it very simple to saddle her, and so simple in saddling her that on the second day of working with the ball, we did our first little ride here. Pretty great little progress that helped us get going, get this horse started under saddle, where now she can carry the saddle and a human and listen to leadership and guidance just a little bit. All right, this is Jake from Pear Tree Ranch, and we'll see you next time.